Welcome to the Obvious Podcast. This is episode number 86. My name is Sonny Macon. I'm the CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
And I'm Peter Daiga, President and CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
You are listening to the Obvious Podcast, where all opinions, or you're also watching this, maybe, hopefully, where all opinions expressed are our own unless we say otherwise.
Love the show? Subscribe on any major podcast platform or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow the Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, and Truth Social, and now on TikTok. All the links you need are in the show notes. And you can reach out to us anytime at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And if you're enjoying the ride, help others find us by leaving a review wherever you listen. Happy Friday, Sonny.
Happy Friday. You have reached, I hope you're listening to this sequentially, you have reached part 3 of our 3-episode series on communications. Right. So we talked about, we talked about
to actually be able to spend, by the time this is over, 60 minutes kind of talking about communication, the importance of it and whatnot.
So our first episode on communication, which was episode 84, was communication done well. 85 was communication done poorly. 86 is about a little bit more personal. I wanted to talk to you about your personal communication style, my style, how we communicate sort of organization with each other and then organizationally with our staff. Go ahead.
And before we get into that, I do want to we talked a little bit about you got in the mail. We have available, as we do every year, a year in success. This particular page on the left here actually prints our mission, our values, and our code of ethics. Mm-hmm. So the last couple episodes and this one, we're going to talk about the value of having a unified mission. Yep. And why that helps in success and delivering on success, being having it shared and agreed to, and then avoiding conflicts of interest. And today we want to talk a little more personal, which we'll talk personal about communication style, if you will, but also its application, I think, to the organization and the
100%, because it has a huge impact on all of that, right?
So people hasn't noticed. We have a different style.
We have a different style.
Right?
Yes, we do.
By the way, different styles can all be successful.
Of course.
I think, we didn't necessarily have one another to, lean on or count on before you came. And people that don't know, our leadership and our board deserves a lot of credit because for many, many years, we tried organically, to kind of develop that person. And it was really much of them that said, you have our support to actually go out and get somebody, and so that's how that started. And there will be some point in the future where I won't be here and you will. And so I think the point we want to talk about today is it's not that one is better than the other, and then talk a little bit more about how we take advantage of the complementarity, if you will, and how it's helped serve. I do want to say,
if you're wondering about the impact of that on the show, I don't think Peter's going anywhere from the show. He might be sitting in Costa Rica or some other exotic country.
Well, that would be pretty cool,
right? You'll be a part of the show for a long time.
Also, share the experience that I don't know if you want to share who it was, but the whole with the Chat GPT and the research, which is
we'll talk about that. But before I get into that, I wanted to just publicly ask Mr. Producer. I just realized this is episode 86, right? 86. 100 is coming up. I'm expecting some, big time production values here.
All right, so you're getting an advance notice.
Letting our team know, hey guys,
we need balloons and confetti.
I would, I would at least like those. I see teenage girls in luxury hotels all the time with those massive balloons that have their age listed on it. I would like to see 100 behind me.
What videos are you watching?
It's not on a video, just when I go on conferences.
All right.
It's not.
Okay.
I just meant in real life when I'm walking through some building.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
I'll see those teenage girls with those balloons that have the numbers on. But I would love to have 100 behind us. But we'll figure it out. I'm sure the team will be hard at work to make this special. But before I even came along, and I'm in I think it's my 4th year now here at ABC, and it's your 27th.
Real?
Yeah.
Wow.
4th year. Time flies, right?
Unreal.
Unreal.
Seems like yesterday in many ways.
Yeah, it really does. And I was thinking about that conversation you and I had over that carrot cake that you and I both love so much.
Before that 4 years, or for the preceding years?
Yeah, before the 4 years.
You
Yeah.
know, because people may or may not know, but we've had a relationship going back
for a long time.
Before, we started having conversations about, our need at ABC for, high level COO or second in command, if you will. And so, our relationship goes further back. So,
but I was thinking about
including carrot cake,
carrot cake.
One of the best ones you can have. Down there.
Yeah, if you're curious, I'm not going to plug the restaurant on the air, but if you're curious, let us know. We'll tell you where it is. And good carrot cake's hard to find. And the way we look at it, it's a vegetable, so
Right, it's got to be healthy. It's got carrots in it.
It's got carrots in it. How would you describe? So let's go back to communication. You're in your 27th year. Clearly, long before I showed up, you have laid the groundwork. You're the third CEO in a 58-year history of this organization. Yeah. You have built upon an incredible record of success and taken it, certainly way above what somebody would even call the next level. How do you feel like that success is reflected in your communication style?
Well, that's a great question. So, and by the way, I guess I've always considered myself a fairly forward and blunt person too. So, but I think it depends on the circumstances,
right?
So,
and who your audience is.
Exactly. I mean, because our position is, a unique position where you have, staff people that you have to communicate differently with. Because your relationship is different versus the volunteer leaders of the organization. So, definitely, my style of communication with them, because I kind of have always felt this may have worked a little bit to my detriment, but, I'm here to provide what I think is a very qualified and valuable opinion when asked. Sometimes at the board meetings and at the federal the kind of the association level, if you will, the volunteer leadership level. So sometimes that's and that's that might now if there's a necessity, I don't think I would hesitate to speak up if I felt like it was going in but if it was a conversation that was, I don't want to say inconsequential, but it wasn't going to be like the detriment of the organization if the decision went this way or that way, or they weren't necessarily getting all the data or information they needed. But if it was important to the conversation, I think I would speak up. But my style is a little different, right? It's a little more political. I think some people have couched it as, I wonder where that came from. I mean, right? Because I've been involved in politics my whole life and lobbying, where I've had to lobby people on this side of the political spectrum and this side. And so you have to know and find ways of trying to do that. So, so I think, that's kind of my style when it comes to our leadership and the association governance, if you will.
I want to say something about your style.
And it probably bleeds a little bit over to the staff. There are probably some occasions when I'm a little less.
Because your relationships, I think staff is interesting because your relationships by definition will be different because every staff member performs at a different level.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
So how you communicate with a high-performing staff member is very different than how you communicate with a low-performing
and early on, if you're trying to redirect or form or something, it might be a different style. It slowly may change over time.
As you say, every new broom sweeps well.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I didn't say that, but there's
somebody said it.
Latin or a Spanish way of saying that apparently is that I love the meaning of it. It makes a lot of sense, right?
So I'm gonna say something about your style that I think might be a little controversial.
Okay,
perceived as controversial. I think one of the things
we love those kind of things on this show. So let's get it out there.
Yeah, and this is gonna how when people ask other people in interviews, what's your greatest weakness? Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I
work too much. It's those answers.
So I don't need. This is not what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
In my criticism of your style.
Oh.
It's not even criticism. It's really feedback. I think you have this perspective, right? Because you've been here so long, and I think you have this perspective that I will let the success speak for itself.
Yes.
And I don't need to remind them that this is I mean, obviously it's a group effort, but it's really your leadership. I don't need to remind anybody that my leadership is responsible for this.
I've had this conversation many times. You're right, and probably is to the detriment of the organization. And I don't really care. Probably me too, but I'm
for sure.
There's no probably to it. I'm certain that it probably has not worked to my advantage professionally.
Yep.
As much as if I was more of a toot your own horn, kind of guy. So, but no, you're spot on. In fact, I can think of, in a recent example within the last week, I was having a conversation with one of our volunteer leaders, and the question was, what did I want my legacy to be? And for me, I don't know, it's a little caught off guard because I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about my legacy. I put my best on the field. And I think it speaks for itself. It's
in your mind, it's reflected, right? In your mind, you're like, look at my legacy. Look at everything that this organization has done since you became CEO. Yeah. And I feel like people don't capture it. People don't catch it, right? Yeah. And this is not an insult on people who don't catch it. It's not an insult on their intellect. It's just people are busy. People have limited bandwidth, and people have to be like. I tell my kids this all the time. Because my kids tend to be very one of them tends to be like very sheepish. And I'm like, hey, do you know what Toyota is? And she looks at me like I'm an idiot. She's like, yeah, I know what Toyota is. They make cars. And are they good cars? Of course. They're Japanese. They're good quality. Then why does Toyota keep advertising on TV, right? Everybody knows what Toyota is. Yeah. Probably a huge global brand. I could grab some random person in Africa and be like, do you know what Toyota is? But they keep advertising because they want to be top of mind. They want to remind you, hey, we're here. Yeah. We're great cars. We're good quality, whatever, right? Yeah. So I think that's something.
Well, I'm Peter Dyga, and I've been president and CEO for 27 years. And we're doing pretty well at ABC Florida East Coast Chapter, ABC Cares Foundation. So anyway.
And not just, so that's a great point. You just said 3 organizations where you're the CEO, I'm the COO. So it's the chapter, it's the foundation, and it's the institute, right? Institutes are our apprenticeship training platform, which is the largest in the state of Florida. But then think about within that, how much happens, right? Yeah. So within the chapter, like, we're landlords, we're publishers, we are workforce placement experts in the institute, we're recruiters, there's all these different roles.
Have we done an episode yet on the recent agreement we've entered with this state organization?
No, we have not
done
that.
That'll have to be, it just makes me think of just the complexity, if you will.
The complexity,
Entered into
we got time. We can talk about that if you want to get into that.
Really entered into a, groundbreaking, I'm thinking for a better word or a better phrase, but for us and even for the state, I think, partnership, if you will, agreement.
Absolutely.
So with the Department of Juvenile Justice, it's formal now and signed and done deal. And we've got the instructor on payroll and cleared through, the background checks and whatnot. So we're super excited, and again, all boils down to why. Yeah. And this came about in part because of relationships, which is why.
Because of your reputation.
And why relationships are important as well, because you never know what might develop out of them. But it also come about because of our commitment to that mission, and that's why we have a whole separate entity, with a whole separate board of directors, a whole separate set of financials and whatnot that's dedicated to that aspect of our mission. So in any event, but we don't talk about it necessarily a lot, and it's a problem. So, but that's where you've been a perfect complement, I think. And
thank you.
And some people have preferences for certain styles, but I guess the point we want to make today is we think both of them are necessary.
I have a real, I'm going to use a phrase that I have a real contempt for, and I see it a lot in life and in organizations. I think people theologize serendipity. They don't understand, and primarily because it hasn't been communicated to them. So they don't understand that every successful agreement, there's years of work behind it. There's years of credibility building, years of relationship building, years of actually delivering results.
Do you think they do that for themselves?
No.
Or their own companies?
No, never.
Their own.
Never. Then it's them. I built it myself with my bootstraps. Look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. But when it's other people's success, I think it's like it's serendipity. Like you do this with celebrities all the time, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, this guy came
By
out
the
of
way,
nowhere.
I mean, some of them have been around almost as long as I have, or
Yeah.
you can have volunteer leaders that have been around a long time.
Absolutely.
I mean, we hope they are. We would like all of
Yeah.
our members to be engaged and to be on committees and so I mean, a lot of them have that experience and contribution, if you will, to
Right. But if they're still not understanding the impact of like your leadership or my leadership, then it's a communication issue. We're back to where we started. Right? So then it's a communication issue. I don't, other than that, I really don't know. I mean, you could argue it's conflict of interest. You could argue all sorts of other things. But primarily, I think communication is a driving force behind how people perceive the success of an organization. But I think people are very, very quick to. I hear celebrities say this all the time, like especially when they make it big. They're like, "Oh man, people keep telling me I'm an overnight success. I've been making commercials for 20 years, or I've had small parts for 20 years, and now that I finally hit it big, everybody tells me I came out of nowhere, and that's just not the case, right? And I think that certainly happens to us as an organization, and I really am very cognizant of the fact that this is all built, and not just on your shoulders, but really on Dan Shaw's shoulders and the young man before him, right? Like it's
Errol Bader.
Errol, and it's like series of good decisions, and of course bad decisions, but the series of good impacts that everything gets built upon.
Yeah. By the way, have we talked yet about the fact that we inducted our only second lifetime member?
We have not talked about that. We should talk about
at the recent national convention.
Yes.
So Richard Wass,
Richard Wass from Wass Construction.
His company and or affiliated company, I think, has been a charter member going back to 1968, and he has served in almost every capacity in this organization at the federal, state, and local level.
That was a twinkle in my daddy's eye in 1968.
Right, and still serves as a trustee on the ABC Cares Foundation. Relatively new trustee, but he's still serving today, and
great guy.
It is not an easy thing to be approved by this organization at a national level to be a lifetime member, and so he recently was done. So that fits in, I think, to the whole mission statement and communication and whatnot. So, but I want to spend a little time because it's amazing how quickly the time goes by. But we're in our third part of a communication series,
We are.
and talk a little bit about the value of being a little more direct when we're talking about and communicating the mission, the focus on the mission, the things that divert us from the mission, the conflicts of interest that might creep in to understanding of the mission, and in the way we communicate, because my leadership has lacked, I think, in a lot of that. And
I would disagree with you on a little bit. I don't think it's lacked on it, but I think what happens is when I heard a professor say this in grad school. Repetition builds culture, right? And when you stop repeating because you think they got it, number one, that's when they stop getting it. Right. But number two, I think there's a price to pay for the distraction that is caused by all these other things that are non-mission focused or based, or however you want to say it, right?
Say that again?
I think there's a price there's a cost of distraction, right? There's a price to pay.
And I think that again. Repetition, right? I mean, that is a good point. That's a great point.
There's an absolute cost to pay, and I think organizations pay a very heavy cost when they get distracted by conflicts of interest or leaders who somehow think all success is serendipity. And I think when you get away from that, I think you pay a price. So you have to constantly remind them why they're here. To constantly not just volunteer leadership, but also staff. Like, why are you here? Like,
that's a great point too.
Right? You have to constantly remind staff why you're here. Yeah. And if you can't figure that, I mean, our mission, it's not just us talking about it. It's like literally on a sign behind me. It's in everything we publish. We talk, it's in if you look at if you were a volunteer leader, you would see it on the agenda. I mean, there is a constant reinforcement. And I think it's still lacking, even how much we reinforce it. It's still not enough.
Yeah.
I
wonder how many people, if we asked,
Would know what our
staff
yeah,
who are volunteer leaders,
yeah.
if they could repeat it like we can.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
great question.
Help our members win work and deliver that work safely, ethically, and profitably.
Profitably.
So anyway, we hope you'll, again, you've gotten this year in success for 2025. And on the right side, we have, on the left side, we have our mission statement, again, printed, our values, our code of ethics, et cetera. So we encourage you to take a look at it and help us communicate and drive this mission every day of every week of every month, year after year.
Year after year.
So,
Because
but
we
anyway,
are-
hopefully with a little bit of an insight on communication styles and how they're complementary, I think. They're serving us well at the moment. And it's not that one is bad or one is good or one is preferable or one is not preferable. It's actually, I think you need a little bit of balance of both at different times and different circumstances. So anyway.
And all of it is connected to the mission. So if you are pursuing, and staff and leaders and volunteers, if you're pursuing the mission, you know, I see it all the time at like our EIC events or at our GC showcase, like, you know, the steel-eyed determination with which we're sort of look at the projects we built. Like, you know, I remember talking to somebody about the racetrack around the Hard Rock and all the engineering that took place under the track because the amount of plumbing that was involved was insane.
Right. And the thresholds, you know,
The thresholds and
for
so
that racetrack as opposed to a street that you and I drive on.
Exactly.
How it differs.
completely different experience, right? So again, mission, and that's, you know, styles, you know, style over substance, guys. I mean, that's really at the end of the day. Pay attention to the substance. Yes, style matters, but if the results aren't there, it's irrelevant.
What would you say to somebody that might say, are you saying the ends justify the means?
I am definitely not saying the ends justify the means, but I think you can have a balance where you can kind of pay attention to, again, if you understand the mission, you can define what success is. And if you understand that, I think you will not get hung up on things that are irrelevant in the long term.
Yeah, maybe we could do a whole show on that.
We could. We should do it. We should do an episode on do the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, but we're out of time, and Mr. Producer is kind of like telling us to wrap it up. So thank you for joining us and for listening. We will be back next Friday with a whole new episode.
And for comments, we ask you to send us an email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. Until next Friday, ciao.
Take care.